Down your street to Downing Street.
Your views, your voice, your vote.
Election 2010 on Swindon 105.5.
And I'm very pleased to say that we have another prospective MP coming in. Very pleased to be able to welcome Robert Buckland to the programme. Robert, good to see you.
Hi, Ian.
Robert's 33rd in the list of target sites that the Conservative Party must win. Yeah. So no pressure there then.
Indeed. It's a very exciting election. Last time as the candidate in 2005, the majority crashed down from about 7,500 to only 1,300. So the maths are clear for everybody to see. This is going to be a key fight in the general election, and we're taking it very seriously indeed, Mark.
So gloves off?
Well, it's got to be a clean fight. I don't believe in getting personal. There's no need for that, and I don't think I have in any of the campaigning I've done over the last 5 or 6 years. I prefer to talk about the issues and about what I think is the better alternative for Swindon and Britain.
OK, let's go on to the issues, and let's take the very first one, which seems to be absolutely flooding the media at the moment, and that is national insurance. Why is it so bad?
Well, it's a tax on jobs. Because it doesn't just penalise employees, it penalises employers. And we're talking not only about the private sector, all the companies in Swindon that generate the wealth that we've come to enjoy, but the public sector as well. So when you put up national insurance, you're putting a huge tax bill on the National Health Service. So the Great Western Hospital has to pay more in national insurance, and that means less money for those frontline public services. It's a tax on jobs and it's a tax on services, and any government worth its mettle should be trying to limit that rather than increase the burdens in this difficult time.
But on the other hand, I mean, if I take what David Cameron is saying, he's going to, rather than put a burden on these companies, he's going to cut the feet away from these companies. He's going to actually remove some of their funding. And now I know he says it's only £1 in every 100 he's going to be removing. I'm talking about services. I'm talking about local services industries. He's saying that he's going to reduce the amount of money which is available for councils, for fire brigades, for police forces, by reducing that and reducing the amount that government spends.
Well, absolutely. We've got to reduce the amount the government is spending. But importantly, we're ring-fencing funding for the National Health Service. We're putting a priority on frontline services. And we're talking about freeing up those wealth generators by cutting corporation tax to make sure that the sources of revenue which pay for all our public services are actually encouraged and enhanced. So whilst we're talking about sorting out the public sector and dealing strongly with public spending, which has rocketed out of control in recent years, we want to place an emphasis upon those frontline services, and that means efficiency savings, amongst other things.
A lot of us, well, efficiency savings, and I understand that, but what scares an awful lot of us, I was around and alive in 1984. I saw the former Conservative government who inherited a situation which, from what we're being told, isn't as bad as nowadays, which resulted in 1 in 4 people in the northeast being unemployed, 1 in 10 families in Manchester not having anybody who can earn any money. Quite frightening. We had major industrial problems in the early 1980s. Is that a situation that we're going to encourage by doing these stringent cutbacks? That was the attitude then. Is that something which we should look forward to?
I don't believe that the comparison with the 1980s is at all accurate. Other parties want to play the politics of fear, talking about 25 years ago when the world was a different place and the politics of Britain was very much more polarised. We're talking about a modern Conservative Party that actually understands the needs of people, respects the public sector, respects those people working in the public sector, and wants to preserve those frontline services. We've all seen in our everyday lives examples of waste and inefficiency in government. This government has had 13 years to get a grip on it. They failed. It's time for a change.
Oh, the way you describe it, though, you're saying they inherited it.
No, they inherited a wonderful growing economy and they've squandered it. And Gordon Brown is the man at the heart of all this, who had his hand on the economic tiller as Chancellor for 11 years. He can't escape the consequences of his own failure, which has worsened the situation that Britain now faces.
Yeah, but we're not suggesting that the current situation is Gordon Brown's fault. This was worldwide, wasn't it?
Well, there was a worldwide recession, yes, but there were aspects of Gordon Brown's policy that exacerbated the problem, that made it worse. The failures of financial regulation can be laid at his door. It was his system that failed when it came to bank regulation. And it's his public spending policy and his lack of emphasis upon the need for efficiency in public services that has led to the waste that we've all seen in parts of the public service.
I take on board what you're saying, but the disaster actually started really, if I can track it back, the first signs that we were having a disaster was Lehman Brothers, followed by Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. These are American companies. He could have had no control over those.
Oh, well, no, they're international. I mean, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were domestic mortgage providers in the US, and the subprime mortgage market, there were warning signs for a long time that things were going wrong there. Lehman's is an international company, and of course we had Northern Rock in the UK as well. So this was a banking crisis that was quite long in the germination, and there is no doubt that the failures of the Financial Services Authority, Gordon Brown's creature, exacerbated the problems that we then faced.
So what are the Conservatives going to do to change this?
Well, we've got to reform financial services regulation. We've got to, in effect, give those with expertise and knowledge of the banking system more control over its regulation. It's all very well giving well-meaning civil servants control, but do they have the knowledge and the expertise? I don't think they did, with respect to them. And I think, therefore, the banking system needs reform and the regulation of the system needs reform. And we need to tax the banks. There's been a lot of talk about international action to impose an extra levy on banks. We think that we should act now to make the banks understand that it was us, the taxpayer, who bailed them out, and that they owe a duty to all of us because of what we did for them.
Robert, moving on, the next section which I'd like to talk about, we've actually been in a war now for the longest period of our modern history.
Yes.
What are we going to do about it?
Well, I think it's far too easy to say pull out. I think pulling out of Afghanistan would send the wrong message to the rest of the world, that the mission failed, that we can be beaten, that therefore anybody who wishes to take on the West can do so. And I'm thinking particularly of countries like Pakistan, which, as you know, is a nuclear power. If we withdrew from that region now, we'd be sending entirely the wrong message to those who would wish to destabilise Pakistan even further. And the consequences of a destabilised Pakistan are too frightening to contemplate.
But Pakistan is a Commonwealth country.
Yes, it is, but it's also a country in the northwestern parts of its region which is in turmoil. The border between Afghanistan and Pakistan is really only a line. It doesn't mean very much to local tribesmen and people living in the area who cross over it frequently. The problems of Afghanistan and northern Pakistan are intertwined, and I think it's up to everybody, all those of us who are interested in politics and in the politics of the region, to get to understand more the complexities of the situation there, and to make sure that our representatives are actually talking to the right people on the ground. My worry is that perhaps sometimes we haven't necessarily picked the right people to govern. And I'm thinking in particular of the Afghanistan government, which I have grave concerns about. The election process was not free and fair, and I wonder whether, in fact, some of the people who are now running those parts of Afghanistan that we are concerned with are, in fact, the right people. I think we need to do more work on the grounds to win hearts and minds over to the benefits of having a structured civil society, more hospitals, more schools, better roads, all the sort of things that we are so used to that I know people in Afghanistan are crying out for.
So in 8 years, with the Americans, with the international community, what have we achieved?
Well, I think we, first of all, achieved a crucial early victory in ousting the then government, which quite clearly had a link to Al-Qaeda. My personal view is that I think our excursion into Iraq, which was a big mistake, and which was something we should not have done, meant that we took our eye off the ball when it came to Afghanistan, and the mission over the last 8 years has changed quite dramatically. I think now it's a question of tactics. And I would like to see a situation whereby the army, instead of having to perform the role of policemen or women, which they're doing every day, resulting in quite concerning casualties, should be allowed to withdraw to bastions whereby they can then provide emergency support as and when serious conflagrations arise.